Did you think politicians always play it safe when the spotlight is on Think Again when Madeleine Dean threw down her threat expecting Pam Bondi to crumble on live television? The entire nation braced for drama. But no one was ready for what came next. Pam didn't just hold her ground, she delivered a comeback. So sharp it silenced the whole chamber and left Dean utterly humiliated. Have you ever witnessed a political takedown this savage? The Senate chamber that day was more crucible than institution. Every seat packed, the air sharpened by a sense that something irreversible was about to unfold. Cameras stacked 3 rows deep, their red lights blinking like centuries of country was watching. And everyone inside could feel at the center table. Pam Bondi adjusted her papers with the calm of someone who had stood in courts and faced hostile rooms for decades. But today the stakes felt different, as the chair called roll. The chamber seemed to hold its breath then. Without waiting for decorum, Dean snapped her microphone on voice, slicing the room like a scalpel. Before we go any further, I have a question for the Attorney General. She declared, her tone hard enough to make colleagues shift uncomfortably. Pam didn't flinch, even when Dean stood, eyes locked on her, mixing outrage with a well-rehearsed righteousness. The American people deserve answers, Dean said, ignoring murmurs from the dais Attorney General. While thousands of families in disaster zones cry out for help, you've stayed conspicuously silent. Are you too loyal to the powers that put you in the seat to speak up for those suffering right now? It wasn't a question. It was an accusation, every word baiting Pam to slip. The phrase powers that put you in this seat was loaded. The room tightened. The chairman's gavel hovered, but silence did the work. Live streams when hot social feeds exploded. Pam Bondi sat alone under the harsh lights, eyes on Dean, her face unreadable, calculating. Say too much, and its political theater. Say too little, and you look guilty. The hunger in the chamber was palpable. Dean wanted a spectacle of public execution. She pressed forward. You speak about justice, but where were you when wildfires torched California, when chemicals poisoned Riverside, when parents buried children? Because of bureaucratic delay, you had every chance to intervene, but you stayed quiet. Why? Her voice was sharp. The drama wasn't just in words. Staffers leaned and reporters locked on their screens. The cable crews, hungry for blood, leaned forward. Pam's hands rested steady on the table. She had learned to spot the difference between true outrage and political theater. With Dean, it was both an old vendetta disguised as crusading justice. Dean pushed harder. Your silence is political, protecting powerful interests at the expense of American families. She slammed a folder on the table. The echoes swallowed the room. Cameras caught every micro shift in Pam's jaw. The crowd gave a low hiss. Even lawmakers who once backed her seemed unsure if they should look her way. Dean's words dripped with venom. Families burying children while you collect checks from the companies responsible. That must be easy in your tailored suits, insulated from consequences. The smirk that played on Dean's face revealed the pleasure she took in dismantling an opponent live on national television. Pam stayed stone. Still, a silence grew so charged it seemed to pulse around them. Dean wasn't done. She leaned, and maybe that's why it's simple for you to dismiss suffering. You've never had to choose between paying a bill and feeding a child. You never waited hours in a government line hoping for help. Pam's face gave nothing, but inside old memories surged. Small kitchens in Tampa, parents working 2 jobs to keep food on the table. Her mother quietly gluing her only good pair of shoes back together so she wouldn't be teased at school. The world had always mistaken her polish for privilege. They didn't know the nights spent studying while friends partied, the sacrifices made just to keep moving forward. Dean pounced again. You parade your resume like public service is a hobby, not a necessity. You're here because of connections, not conviction. Her voice twisted to land maximum shame. Somewhere in the gallery, a reporter scribbled, not the golden girl. They thought the myth of the power princess was cracking. Dean sensed a shift and bore down. You talk of justice, but your donors set those wildfires your signatures covered up Riverside's poison. How does it feel to watch children suffer from your decisions? Pam remembered her father sitting her down after the electric company threatened shut off, telling her, you fight for every inch in this world. Don't let anyone say you didn't earn it. That grit was why she didn't crack. Now, even as the internet detonated with memes calling her public enemy, even as Dean gathered for a final thrust determined to break her under the glare of America, Pam Bondi refused to bend. She sat in the eye of that storm, every muscle tight, but unyielding, knowing the story was being written in real time, and she would decide how it ended. School through courtroom stacked against her, through every insult disguised as concern. She owed her success to sweat, not circumstance. The toxic drama played out on television sets nationwide. Social media spun Dean's accusations into memes and headlines painting Pam Bondi as too privileged to care. Pundits debated her legacy, some salivating at the prospect of her public fall, yet others noticing the Subtle shifts in her expression sensed a story deeper than the sound bites. One that had never been told. Attention hit a breaking point. Bondi's silence grew more powerful than any outburst. She let Dean's words settle, refusing to dignify them with outrage, instead locking eyes with her accuser, her posture telegraphing a quiet, unbreakable resistance. In that moment, she was not just defending her record, but her family, her past, every hidden sacrifice that had built the woman she was. Even some of Dean's staunchest supporters began to squirm. The narrative was shifting. Bondi, painted as aloof, was suddenly all too human. Her pain and determination, exposed under the harshest scrutiny, the room turned into a pressure cooker, promising either detonation or release. Then, as if determined to push her over the edge, Dean sharpened her attack. "If you care about justice, let's talk specifics," she demanded, her voice cold and surgical. "Tell us about Riverside, the chemical fire, the children hospitalized, your office's silence explained to America why you did nothing." The word struck like a slap, raising the stakes. Once more, Bondi did not move. The chamber felt that this was the moment the story would either collapse or catch fire. The past, long buried, now threatened to explode into a confrontation. Neither woman could afford to lose. The next round set the question electric and unresolved. Would Pam's resolve finally crack, or would the world witness a surge of strength no one expected as Dean prepared to strike at Riverside? Everyone leaned in, waiting for the dam to burst. Tension inside the Senate chamber soared as Madeleine Dean, eyes blazing, rose, her movement, sharp voice slicing through the noise. "We've danced around platitudes long enough. It's time for real answers." She lifted a file thick with papers. The sound of it against would amplify the threat. Every camera locked on her, the public glued to their screens, watching a predator circle its prey. Dean faced the assembly, brandishing the folder. "Ladies and gentlemen, what we have is more than oversight. It is neglect that costs lives." She laid out her evidence like a prosecutor on the verge of historic conviction. On March 14th, a chemical fire tore through Riverside. Hundreds of families displaced, dozens of children hospitalized. Was our attorney general? The record shows no statement, no visit, not even an acknowledgement. Her words echoed off marble and skin alike. Bondi sat beneath merciless cameras, every eye demanding a reaction. Dean pressed on, clicking her remote to fill a giant monitor with images of Riverside devastation, tense children with oxygen masks, mothers clutching bottles stamped with warnings. Then the feed changed to a corporate gala in New York. Champagne glasses, Bondi laughing with executives from Meridian Chemicals under federal investigation for Riverside's disaster. Dean let the images hang, her timing ruthless. "This is the face of American justice today. Our chief law enforcement officer, arm in arm with those who made Riverside a tragedy. Not one word for victims, but plenty of time for donors and cocktails. Madam Attorney General, can you look at these families and explain why your silence coincided with a $250,000 contribution from Meridian to your super PAC?" Gasps rippled through the chamber, whispers turned to urgent commotion. Senators shifted the chairs, gavel hovered, phones buzzed as aides fed updates. Reporters raced to upload footage, prepping headlines. "Bondi betrays Riverside." Dean drops bombshell. Dean locked eyes with Bondi. The people of Riverside begged for answers. Instead, they got a blackout. Medical records, concealed hospital directors pressured. Meanwhile, "Your coffers fill faster than clinics. Empty. Do you deny your office? Downplay the contamination. Report, protect donors, yes or no?" Under oath, her voice rang out. Deadly. Time froze. Focus shifted to Pam, her face magnified on screens from Sacramento to Miami. Silence now read as guilt to the public. Dean had cornered her. Even sympathetic senators watched with cool calculation. Dean leaned in for the kill. "Let's be clear. This is not negligence. It is complicity. People deserve to know if justice is for sale." The force of it crashed over the chamber. Hashtags lit up. Bondi corruption, justice for Riverside. Dean demands truth. The narrative already out of Bondi's hands. Camera zoomed in, catching every muscle on her face, absorbing the blow. She knew how it looked. The absent leader, the self-serving official, but also knew the truth was more tangled, more painful than anyone cared to admit. Yet Dean's narrative was too slick, too brutal for nuanced. Tension coiled tighter. Some senators texted under the table. Others buried their eyes in notes. Bondi's fate dangled. The whole nation waiting either for collapse or confrontation. Dean stepped back, arms folded. The committee, the media, the country, everyone waited for Pam Bondi to speak, to defend, a break. But she held the line, eyes flashing pain, and defiance, jaw set against the toxic tide. The accusations, the images, the emails could not erase what she carried. But in this moment, truth was irrelevant. Spectacle ruled across the nation. Viewers leaned forward, breathless. Would she fight or fold in the silence? A storm gathered. Dean's words echoed. The world demanded an answer. Pressure boiled over. Firestorm of outrage grew, pushing Bondi corruption to the top of every trend the next move was everything the corridors of Congress buzzed with new chaos after the hearing. Bondi was stalked by reporters desperate more. Ruthless by the hour news vans choked the curb replaying Dean's charges of Riverside images, her haunting silence. As midnight past the crisis only metastasized inside a cramped media room, journalists scoured their phones when first email hit subject line for immediate release proof of AG Bondi's crimes from an anonymous source. Attached were files claiming Bondi personally laundered chemical money through shell packs, wire transfers. The truth ends her career. Within minutes, attachments spread. Screens glowed with spreadsheets, ledgers tying Bondi's campaign to a dark network of corporate fixers. Social media, how screenshots morphed into hashtag conspiracies, exploded every detail, dissected, weaponized in a marble hallway. Bondi face, cameras her face caught by strobing LEDs. She spoke, little eyes, hard jaw locked. As questions flew, did you launder Meridian's money? Did you bury Riverside's truth? She refused to engage, knowing better than to gift them a quote pressure, mounted not just from press, but her allies' rumors infected her network. Inside a quiet alcove near the speaker's office, Pam confronted her aide, Vanessa, pale. Clutch your phone. What's going on, Pam? Demanded. Vanessa's eyes darted. Someone's leaking our memos. They knew about our Riverside call schedule. I'm not sure who to trust. With trail landed sharp. Always the deepest cut. Meanwhile, 2 floors below, a team of reporters huddled over the documents. Julian Tran, a veteran, frowned, scrolling. Some of this is too neat. Wire transfers. Redacted names at circumstantial. Someone wants us to take the bait. His younger colleague argued it's a pattern packs. Shell companies of Riverside timeline. This could be Watergate. Their debate spilled into the newsroom. Editors weighing risk. Dean worked the optics cameras lining up as she spoke, voice modulated outrage, tinged with regret. If our attorney general abused her office, she must answer to America. Every carefully phrased line fed the media storm, growing more toxic by the hour. Bondis. Political allies felt that a senator once loyal now let calls go unanswered. Donors demanded reassurances. Even staff wavered, trust fraying under the headlines. In the background, social media churned op-eds, questioned her morality. Pundits hinted at resignation. Comedians lined up punchlines. The cruelest blow came that evening in a closed-door room. Her closest